welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I am your host, Jessica, and I am back with Kaira Rouda to talk about this really interesting book called We Were Never Friends, which is a lot of things. We had spoken last year about Jill is not happy, and I joked in the beginning, I'm like, are we going to get Jill is still not happy? Because whenever I tell people where that book went, they're like, oh my goodness, I have to read that. You're going to feel the same way about We Were Never Friends. Sorry, I think I said We Were Not Friends. You're going to feel the same way about We Were Never Friends. It's really interesting. It's got a lot of different characters. It definitely did not go where I was expecting it to go at all. I really love it when books take not even left turns. They just kind of like drive off a cliff. And you're like, where is this gonna land? And this one did that. It has a big cast. It is a lot of fun. Welcome, Kaira. Tell us a little bit about We Were Never Friends.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. And I like to keep you guessing, so that's good. I'm glad that we drove off the cliff together again. So We Were Never Friends is about a group of sorority sisters, former sorority sisters. This is like 15 years later. And they are summoned back together because one of their sons is marrying one of their daughters. And so the Queen Bee, Roxy, is hosting a fabulous engagement party at her brand new mansion in Palm Springs. And thus they're all summoned back together. And really, it's the reunion none of them wanted, but they all deserve.
That is a way to put it for sure. Yeah, it's like a weird reunion slash engagement party between Roxy and Roxy's son and Beth's daughter. And it digs up a lot of secrets about everybody. And it calls back to something horrible that happened to the one sister that you keep hearing the name and you don't you find out pieces as to what happened to her. But one thing I do want to kind of ask you is a little bit about some of the classic Hollywood inspiration for this, because it's not going to be a spoiler so much because it really is the very beginning. If you know any classic cinema or in general, there's is it a Sunset Boulevard a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I love about Palm Springs and, the 1920s and like when the first Hollywood celebrities first started going there in that era, it was because in their contracts they had to stay within 100 miles of Hollywood. So there weren't that many choices of where they could go to kind of retreat. So they created this whole movie colony, and these homes were just gorgeous. And so the one that kind of sprung to mind when I started writing was Gloria Swanson's former house, which is now a hotel. And I don't know, just that era and all the secrets too that they were keeping back then is kind of fun to think about and write about. I mean, apparently she had a lot of lovers, and there's a lot of rumors about who all of these men were. But anyway, yeah. So I just love that kind of setting. So I thought having a home like that Roxy and her husband have remodeled would be fun.
Yeah, and it has, I mean, it's like it has that whole feel, including some of the artwork calls back to that time period, and some of the story beats play with cinema of that time period, which I thought was interesting. If I said all of them, it would give stuff away, so I'm not going to say it.
That's the hard part about suspense novels.
Exactly. I know. But each of the characters, nobody's 100% innocent in their past. And you sort of have to figure out what their deal is in the present too, which is a little bit difficult to figure out at first. And it also sort of has like a little bit of like a Clue feeling to it, where it's like all of these people are called and they're just like, why were we even called here? We haven't spoken to so and so in forever. So a lot of big personalities. Um, When did this story start to kind of formulate for you?
This one, I do think it was a trip to Palm Springs because we're about like an hour and a half drive to get there. So, it's fun to go there just for a long weekend. So I do know that it was when we were visiting Palm Springs and doing a walking tour, some sort or another. And yeah, I thought the setting it really spoke to me, and it would be really fun to set a group of people there. And then as far as the sorority sisters, it kind of gave them that bond in the past that it's such a unique experience. I was in a sorority too, and I think it's such a unique time in life, and all of a sudden you're thrown together and you're sisters with all these people that you don't know yet. And that's kind of a fun twist on things as well. So I guess it's just kind of a lot of different ideas like that coming together and I don't know, creating a story in my head.
I also thought the idea of the a marriage between a son and a daughter of two of these women was really interesting, especially because you're just kind of like, man, the world is really small, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I just had two weddings in our family and I have another son engaged. So that's the other thing. I had weddings on my brain
Yeah,
together.
no,
Yeah.
definitely. And you do have there's a lot of just drama in weddings to begin with, right?
Yes.
Because two families are coming together. Um,
Whether they want to or not.
Whether they want to or not. So I guess one question I had was, out of all of these characters, do you see any as like the primary protagonists as opposed to some others that are, they all fit into the puzzle, but they're not, necessarily like the main characters. Like if it let's go to like considering this a film. Who are the top billing? Who's the top
Who's the star?
billing? The two
Yeah.
main, and maybe I'm saying two because in my mind it's to me I see two. But to you, who are the top billed names?
I mean, I'll be interested to see who you say. So Beth for sure is one of the stars. And then I think Roxy, right? Yeah. So it's kind of the mother-in-laws to be. Or, yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely saw that. And again, it's like I couldn't get the cinematic feel of this particular book out of my head while I was reading it for that reason. Yeah, they are on very opposite ends of a lot of things. They both want what's best for their children, what they think is best for their children, and whether or not that's actually really best for their children is up for debate. They have different versions of what that looks like, but they have this shared past with all the other women too, which is why one of the characters who, if on my version, I have an ARC where it lists all the characters and what their situation was in the sorority, where you find out, like you kind of wonder when one of them is going to come in, and it all kind of circles around this. And then you also have like the fact that Roxy's perfect life is not as perfect as she would like it to be, and things, with her marriage aren't as nice as she would like it to be either. There's so many different components. How did you keep it all together? How did you not like, did you ever feel like you were losing the plot?
I am a pantser, so I write by the seat of my pants, which is fun. And also, I can't really explain process that well, which is funny. When one time they had me like to lead a workshop about process, I'm like, I don't think you want me to do that because I just kind of sit down and start writing. So when I have a novel that has multiple lead characters, I like to kind of picture it as a movie as I'm writing it as well. So the great thing about having multiple points of view is when one character, let's say Roxy, is on stage, and then if she's starting to give away too much, I can kind of like knock her off stage and put somebody else on. So to me, it's a lot easier to write a multiple POV Novel, just because of that, because if someone is getting, a little too much on the page, then I can skedaddle them off. So yeah, I don't really have trouble keeping track of them once their characters are in my head, because then I kind of have the sense of them. And when I'm writing their section, they just are kind of in with me. I am them. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think that one thing that I really wanted to know also, especially now that I know that you are a pantser, or I like to say discovery writer,
Yes, that's more. Yes, yes, that's
because
much nicer sounding.
right? I don't know that, yeah, no offense to people who like the term pantser, but if you've listened to me before, I will always either say discovery writer or MacGyver writer,
Oh,
which
okay.
is like, you're like giving like you're giving your characters the bare minimum and they have to kind of get out of a situation with it. But one thing that I really like about that process and like to kind of hear about is the characters that sort of show up on their own and either really just like plant a bomb in your story or walk away with the scene. So now, since we're talking about this cinematically, we have the main characters. Was there anybody in either the main group of women or somebody else that they maybe came with, and you don't have to give away too much, but like somebody you weren't expecting to come on the screen that sort of walked on and made things difficult for you as a writer and the characters?
I think my favorite character who kind of appeared was Amelia. She just kind of popped in, and she wasn't invited originally. Hopefully, that doesn't give too much away, but she's a former sorority sister as well, but one that they were trying not to include, and she included herself anyway, which I thought was a great premise for a character just blowing onto the stage. So, yeah, she was definitely one that caught me by surprise and really fun to write. She's a great character, I thought.
Yeah, she was extremely chaotic, to say the least.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fun too, because you need to have, I mean, to me, what makes writing fun is when you have a character like that that's just so distinct and so chaotic. Obviously, I kind of like my chaotic characters. And those people are the ones that kind of ignite the spark under other characters and kind of and keep moving the story forward too. There's also a little well, see, I can't talk about that. The other character that surprised me is well, can't talk about it, but there was another person that surprised me as well.
I'm curious, we can talk about that when we're done
Yeah,
recording.
yeah,
And the guests who are listening to this can read the book and decide whether or not we're all talking about the same character.
exactly, exactly.
Um, so I can't stop now coming back to that whole idea. Did you have casting in mind, either anybody currently or like from the 1920s who you imagined when you were writing these characters?
I am terrible at actors and actress names. Did you have anybody? Because that's a great question, and I bet somebody's going to ask
No,
me.
which is why I wanted to ask you.
You know what? I'm going to have to research that because it would be fun to like cast some 1920s people, right?
Well,
It would
that's
be,
like that's the fun of it, right?
yeah.
You can imagine in your mind who everybody is, but it really did just kind of have the feel of like a good Hitchcockian thriller,
Aw.
which veers off a cliff, as we kind of mentioned before. When you are writing, and especially since, as you said, you sort of, discover things along with the characters, do you ever have trouble cutting plot lines? Like, do you ever find like, I can't, like, this is too much, this doesn't belong here, or maybe, you're sort of like fighting with an editor saying, nope, can't cut that. This is really important because of this.
My usual problem is that I write short. Like my stories come out kind of fast and furious. And so usually what my my editorial letters will say is like, we need a little more backstory here. We need to slow this down a little bit. We need, because I'll know their backstory in my head, but oftentimes I don't, because I really don't want to bore people. Like I want people to read fast and keep turning the pages. So that's my challenge usually for my editor. It's like, can we can we learn a little bit more about Beth, for example, or why is Roxy this way? And I'm like, oh, isn't that obvious? Because they're in my head, so I already know what their backstory is. But so that's usually my thing. So not usually about plot. It's more about filling in the characters a little bit more. So they're not just in my head. They're also in yours as a reader.
Do you have like a time period within your writing? Like for instance, like does it usually take you 6 months to write a book or shorter than that?
That's such an interesting question because I do think each book is unique. It's kind of like each kid is unique. And so some stories just come rolling out and they're really fast and the characters are right there on the page. And you almost like, to me, I almost, when I go to sleep, they're in my head. When I wake up, they're in my head. So it's kind of, it could be one of those situations. This story was a lot like that. And then some stories are just, they just take more time and the characters are more, I don't know how to even explain it, but not as present, I guess, in my head. So I kind of have to give them more time and patience to percolate, if that makes sense. So I've learned over the years now of doing this that if a story isn't coming fast and furious, or if the characters aren't there, then I go ahead and give myself permission to take a break because I think the muse really appreciates patience and not pushing. And I think if you give yourself the time to like just go for a walk or think about something else and then the characters will pop back in your head. That's kind of what I learned. So it's not really a timeline more than a pace for each story. But I do find for my writing that a condensed timeline in the plot is really helpful. So I usually write like a story that takes place in a week or a weekend, or like best day ever is 24 hours, like things like that, because it kind of helps keep the pace moving.
Well, this was super fun. Again, there's like so many things I want to discuss, but I can't
I know.
because if I did, it would either hint too much or give too much away. So I will ask, has the muse spoken to you? Do you have something else on the horizon?
I do actually. This is kind of a fun project. So I started a thing called the Killer Author Club back in the pandemic, and it's a bi-weekly show. I had a book coming out called Somebody's Home, ironically, in the middle of the pandemic, and no way to promote it really. So I reached out to Kimberly Bell and Heather Gudenkoff, who also had books coming out about the same time. So we kind of joined together and created this show, and it's been so much fun. We've been doing it ever since, and we've interviewed so many authors, and it's been so much fun. And at one point we decided like, let's write a book together. So we're collaborating on a novel, and it is gosh, it's gonna, I think, come out like a year from now-ish. And so that's been really fun. So it's kind of like you have a third of a novel to write as opposed to a whole novel, but you also have a partner or partners in this case. And it's been really fun. So we've been having a blast doing that.
Awesome. This was super fun. I would love to talk to all three of you when that comes out because
Yeah.
I'm dying to know how that works.
Yeah, and we in this case, Kimberly's a full plotter. Like she just has spreadsheets and all
And
of this
that's
kind of
exactly what I want to know, you know?
right.
Like,
And
I
then
really need to know.
Heather and I used to both be the only developmental people, and now Heather's kind of moving to the dark side of plotting. Kimberly's teaching her that. I'm like, no, don't go. So it has been really interesting because obviously, if you're working with three of you, it can't just all be in my head. Because all the characters have to work together. So I'm learning new tricks too. So that's good.
Well, thank you so much. I can't wait to talk to you off screen and off mic about a few things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm so glad you read it and enjoyed it.
But I do urge the people who are listening to this, because you will really be interested in some of these plot twists as well. If you are a fan of thrillers, if you like books that go like nice and fast, and they're page turners. This is definitely it. This is one that you should read, at a spa, on vacation, when you're snowed in. It's a good one. It will not take you too long, and that's not because it is too short. It is because it has a very fast pace.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you liked it, Jessica. And it has a great cover, especially for wintertime. It makes you want to go swimming in a pool.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, it's kind of a beach read, but it like if it's beachy and warm where you are, sure. If it's chilly where I am, like draw yourself a hot bath and read it.
Right.
Although
Exactly.
if it's a library book, read it after you get
Oh, yeah.
to bath.
Do not put your library book in the bathtub,
Yes,
people. No,
yes.
no,
So if
no.
you're purchasing the book from your favorite bookseller, no judgment. But if you are going to your local library, like Syosset Public Library, and you're going to have a hot bath, read the book in your nice robe when you come out.
After your bath. Yes,
After
that
your
is
bath.
a good tip. That is a good tip.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks again. This was Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page Pod. My guest was
Kaira Rouda.
I've been saying your name completely wrong.
There's so many vowels. It's just a thing. Everybody says it different ways. So it's Kaira, like air in the middle, and then Rouda, like Gouda.
All right. Well, please ignore the fact that I've called her Kaira Rouda a bunch of times.
It's okay. I answered anything.
Well, next time I will know better. And it is time to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.